Right. Left a good job in the city. Working for the man every night and day.
Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Friday, guys. It's good to be back. I took yesterday off because I streamed on Wednesday. We can talk about that tonight. We're going to do call in tonight. I do owe you a call in segment. So we're going to go ahead and do that tonight. And it's Friday. So what's up, guys? Whoa. Oh my God. We have so much to talk about tonight. So much news happened this week. I was just like, I can't cram all this into one segment. But welcome to Sab's podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sab's podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursday and Friday, and you can catch me here Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. And quick shout out to all of you watching on YouTube, Rockfin, and Twitter. Welcome, guys. It feels good to be back. Want to go ahead and give quick shout outs to people in the chat and we will get started. Shout out to Janice, says Nick did a great job on Jimmy Dore show with Aaron Mate today. Yes, I was able to see some of that. I caught up on some of it after my stream on RBN on Rockfin. So I was able to check out some of that. Nick killed it as usual. Shout out to Mastermind, says Janet 100% or Janice 100%. What's going on? Miguel says peace. Happy Friday. Miguel's also a Sabby member. Greetings, ACAB says hi to Miguel. Shout out to Outlaws. I think Marianne would be less likely to start World War III than someone related to the FKR who nearly did. The FKR? Old enough to remember it well. Interesting. Shout out to Luz, says LOL, ain't nobody likes Mary Ann. Damn, Luz. Go ahead and take that poll, guys. We're going to reveal the results at the end. What's going on? Hannah G says RFK Jr. as an independent. What's going on? Negro, this name. Hi, Sabby and friends. Hashtag Kennedy 2024. Greetings, CBC voters. Says happy Friday, everyone at Sabs. What is up, CBC voter? Angela, who's a Sabby member, says greetings and happy Friday. All I can think when I see the thumbnail is, well, civilization had a good run. Sort of. That's interesting. Shout out to Larez. What's up, Sabrina, Eric, and Sabby fam? Smash the like, streaming Coachella, and this, LOL. But yeah, it's a travesty of the justice. Amali is charged. Different year, same old tune. Yes, indeed. We're going to get into that. Greetings, Ilhanner says hi to Angela. What's going on? Lawrence, who's a Sabby member, says now leaning ever so slightly towards RFK after gray zone coverage. Still would prefer RFK as an indie, but was impressed by RFK announcement speech. Yeah, we'll talk all about that tonight. Shout out to Zach, says, hello, anti-imperialist comrades. Greetings, Rick says, hey, y'all. What's going on? Corey, who's a Sabby member, says, happy Friday, all. Peace. Greetings. Yep, X, you were just live a moment ago. You're busy today. Yeah, on Friday, I do 2 shows. Actually, Thursday and Friday, I do 2 shows. Shout out to Hugo, says 77% agree with me so far. Hugo's also a Sabby member. Greetings, Randy says, couldn't answer poll question. Don't vote, revolt, and riot until the government crumbles, comrades. Interesting, Randy. Yeah, unfortunately with the poll, I'm not allowed to, insert 5 options. Like it only lets me create 4. So yeah. So definitely, if you are going to vote, how would you vote? Definitely. When you're answering that poll. Shout out to Eric. Excuse me, Eric, who's a Sabby member, says bad choices poll, LOL. What's going on? Oz says RFK all the way, question mark. What is going on in one trot do centro? Doesn't allow me to X RFK third. Really? That's interesting. Let me know if anyone else is having that problem. Did you accidentally hit one of the other options and now you're trying to hit that one? Because if you do that, I don't think it'll let you reverse it. Greetings, Venti Cafe says, welcome back, Sabby. I'm back. I'm like Mace. Welcome back. I don't know if everyone remembers that. I don't know how old everyone is in the chat, but Mace was like Puff Daddy's, like back when P. Diddy or Diddy, whatever he is now, he used to be called Puff Daddy. And that was like his partner in crime. Myra says, hi at Sabby Sabs and everyone. Much love to you. Greetings, Hugo, who's a Sabby member, says, yes, Nick did good. Shout out to Serena, says, greetings, comrades. What's going on? Desert Mantis. I'm late for a very important date. Sabby Sabs. Oh, oh dear. Make sure I'm not skipping over anyone. Oh, it jumped on me again. I saw Notori in here. Shout out Notori. I don't know where your name went. Sometimes the screen moves, jumps ahead, and I can't find people again. I'm sorry, Notori. But welcome, Notori. Shout out to E. Heller. It's entirely valid to opt out of the corporate U.S. election system. I like RFK, but won't give another duopoly candidate my support on the federal level. Shout out to Roger Meadows, who's a Sabby member, says Ilharner, Miguel, H, Serena, Swoyer, hey, hey, hey. Shout out to whoever says what's up, Angela and Desert. I don't know what happened to Notori's comment. Shout out to Reef. What's up from Indie News Network? Thank you for the super chat. Indie News Network has a playlist of Uhuru movement interviews with Chairman Amali, Penny Hess, and Akile Ane. People should check it out. Yes, you should. Indie News Network actually interviewed like all of them. I only interviewed Amali Yeshitela. Shout out to Jackie, says RFK/Tulsi24. United we stand like giants. That's an interesting combination. Shout out to Steve, says hi, Mentes. Dun dun dun. Start us off right by hitting the like. Yes, guys, that helps me out with the algorithm. Shout out to A. Ross, says hi, Miguel, whoever, Desert, and Bryce. Some of you are really popular in the chat. I don't know if you've noticed. What's going on? EMK says, hey, Sabby and fam. Okie doke. Let's go ahead and get started. I want to go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. As usual, you keep the lights on around here. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: members, Sabbies, Sabsters, Sabinators, and of course, the ultimate. All of their names are featured here. You can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. You guys are just doing the thing. You're doing the damn thing. And I want to give a special shout out to a new Sabby patron. Her name is Christina Sandage. Over here, we call them newbies. So everyone, please welcome, give it up for Christina. All right. Let's go ahead and get into it, guys. Oh, dear. These topics tonight. So much to discuss. I want to go ahead and share my thumbnail here so you can see what we are discussing tonight. Tonight, we are discussing Matt Taibbi threatened with prison. Yes, that is actually happening. The woman next to him on that picture, that is Stacey Plaskett. You may remember her from the Twitter Files hearing. I'll get into that story. I have a lot to say. We're also going to discuss RFK Jr. critiques elites. He was on Tucker Carlson recently. I'm going to touch on that. I'm also going to touch on some of the things that he said during his announcement as well. We're also discussing Hunter Biden update shocker. Yes, things are going down. This Hunter Biden laptop story is not going away. More information is coming out. And I'm also going to discuss Amali Yeshitela charged. Very unfortunate story there. I think we had a feeling that this was coming. I did interview him. So when we talk about these stories tonight, I want you to keep one thing in mind. All of these stories have a theme, and that theme is corruption. It does not mean that everyone who is featured there is corrupt, but it could mean that there is another force at play that is corrupt that is affecting them. So tonight's theme is corruption. We're going to get started with this story here about Hunter Biden. Now, the Hunter Biden laptop story has been a big deal, big news. You also know that liberal media outlets, for the most part, chose not to cover it, not to talk about it. That was not a surprise to me. But now, new information has been revealed about Hunter Biden, and I believe that this is just a stepping point to get to the real issue. Remember what I've told you before in reference to these government agencies? Sometimes they will come after you for one little thing because they can't get you on the big issue. And that is what I believe is happening here. There's two things that are happening with Hunter Biden. The first one is this IRS story coming out of the Wall Street Journal. Let's take a look at this. Hunter Biden probe is being mishandled, IRS supervisor says. So the IRS is one of those government agencies. Let's get into this story. There's a picture of Hunter Biden there. I'll make this a little bit larger, actually, because okay. There we go. An IRS supervisor has told lawmakers he has information that suggests the Biden administration is improperly handling the criminal investigation into President Biden's son, Hunter Biden, and is seeking whistleblower protections. This is huge. Again, Wall Street Journal reported this. A letter sent to Congress on Wednesday says a career Internal Revenue Service criminal supervisory special agent has information that would contradict sworn testimony by a senior political appointee. The supervisor also has information about a failure to mitigate clear conflicts of interest in the ultimate disposition of the case, according to the letter. The supervisor has details that show preferential treatment and politics improperly infecting decisions and protocols that would normally be followed by career law enforcement professionals in similar circumstances if the subject were not politically connected. So, what do they mean? Obviously, Hunter Biden is Joe Biden's son. Joe Biden right now is president of the United States. So someone like Hunter Biden, yes, it is likely that he is going to receive some type of preferential treatment because that is the president's son. Even probably before then, right? When Joe Biden was a senator, he probably still received preferential treatment. I don't know who this whistleblower is, and neither do you. But I will say this person is pretty brave for speaking out against this. Let's go on. The letter says the supervisor has been overseeing an ongoing and sensitive investigation of a high-profile, controversial subject since early 2020, which it did not name. The investigation at issue is into younger Mr. Biden, the people familiar with the matter said. A spokesman for the White House deferred to the Justice Department or the IRS for comment. Spokeswomen for the Justice Department and for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Delaware, which is leading the investigation, declined to comment. Of course they did. A spokesman for the IRS and a spokeswoman for Hunter Biden didn't immediately respond to requests for comment. Hunter Biden is facing criminal investigation related to his taxes and whether he made a false statement in connection with a gun purchase. When he said in December 2020 that his tax matters were under investigation, Hunter Biden said he was confident that a professional and objective review of these matters will demonstrate that I handled my affairs legally and appropriately. Let me pause right there for just a second. So they're trying to get him on tax corruption, right? One of the ways to take down someone, let's say it's a bigger issue that they're involved in. In Hunter Biden's case, it would be the Hunter Biden laptop story, right? But let's say, for whatever reason, you don't have enough evidence to get him on the bigger issue. Oftentimes, what these agencies will do is they'll get you on something else just to get you. Let me make something very clear. If the FBI, if the CIA, if the NSA, if these government agencies want to get you, they will find a way to get you on something. And one of the easiest ways to get people, especially people who have a lot of money, is to get them with tax fraud, with tax corruption. Taxes are the easiest way to get these individuals. Let's go on. Investigators have believed for months they had enough evidence to indict the younger Mr. Biden. The Journal and other news outlets have reported. Prosecutors have also weighed whether Hunter Biden's well-documented drug addiction would present a defense against a potential criminal tax case. He hasn't been charged with any wrongdoing. Okay, this is a reach. This is a reach. Listen, a lot of people in this country have struggled with addiction. And I don't remember any average Joe being able to get out of tax issues because they had a drug addiction. This is a reach. The investigation has been led by a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney, David Weiss, who has remained the top federal prosecutor in Delaware under the Biden administration. During a March oversight hearing, Attorney General Merrick Garland said Mr. Weiss has broad independence to pursue the charges. He has been advised he is not to be denied anything that he needs. Now, this is coming from Merrick Garland. Mr. Garland testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee on March 1st. I have not heard anything from that office to suggest that they are not able to do everything the U.S. attorney wants to do. The Justice Department. The investigation has unfolded against the backdrop of congressional inquiries scrutinizing the Biden family's finances and specifically Hunter Biden's income from work overseas. Now, what does this go back to? This goes back to this idea that some of the information that is on that laptop has to deal with Hunter Biden's work overseas, particularly with Ukraine. Continuing on, in March, the Republican-led House Oversight Committee released a memo saying that the president's family indirectly received money from a Chinese oil company in 2017 after Mr. Biden stepped down as vice president. Chinese oil company. Now, I want to make a comparison here because right now you have Amalia Yeshitela, right? We're going to get into that story, who is charged. And the federal government or these government agencies, they're trying to say that people like Amalia Yeshitela, people that are part of the African People's Socialist Party, took payments from Russia. But here we have an accusation here where it is believed that the Biden family received money from a Chinese oil company. But you don't see these government agencies charging Hunter Biden or anyone else in that family. Now, they probably can't charge Joe Biden because he's president right now. But if he were to step down, or if he were not to run again, but I think he is going to run again. But if he were not to win, they would have every right to go after him as well. But you need to make the comparison. Why would they have no problem going after Amali Yeshitela for a similar situation, but they would not go after Hunter Biden? This Hunter Biden issue has been a problem for a couple of years. We've been hearing about this issue. We've been hearing about what could be on that laptop, but they have yet to charge Hunter Biden. It's all about who you know, people. It is all about who you know and who you are connected to. As part of their investigation, Republican lawmakers reached an agreement with the Treasury Department to access reports it has received of suspicious financial transactions related to members of President Biden's family. Listen, is it possible that those suspicious financial transactions could also be on that laptop? These are questions we need to ask. The Wednesday letter from Mark Light, a lawyer for the IRS agent, said his client wants whistleblower protections to provide his information. It was addressed to both Republican and Democratic leaders on the Senate and House Judiciary Committees, the Senate Finance Committee, and the House Ways and Means Committee. So in other words, our politicians in DC, anyone who's on those committees, they know about this. So next time, for those of you that are doing the confrontations for the politicians when they come and have these town meetings like Jose and his group, next one you go to, look up and see who are on these committees, which politicians are a part of these committees. And the next time one of those politicians comes to do a town hall meeting or whatever, ask them about this situation with Hunter Biden. Let's go on. Oh, and they can't lie and say to you that they don't know about it, because it tells you right here that they know about it. Despite serious risk of retaliation, my client is offering to provide you with information necessary to exercise your constitutional oversight function and wishes to make the disclosures in a nonpartisan manner to the leadership of the relevant committees on both sides of the political aisle. That's the letter signed by Mr. Lytle. According to the letter, the employee previously disclosed his information internally at the IRS and to the Justice Department's Inspector General. He is restricted from sharing some of the information due to privacy laws that shield Americans' tax return information. While taxpayer information is largely protected from disclosure, the tax code allows the chair of the tax panels, including the Ways and Means Committee, to request and receive any tax returns from the IRS. Democrats used that tool to obtain former President Donald Trump's tax returns last year. So, here we have a whistleblower from the IRS who seems to have information, financial information, not just about Hunter Biden, because it says the Biden's family, that could prove to be pretty damning if they want protection. If the whistleblower is asking for protection, that means that the information that they have, in my opinion, is pretty damning. This person needs to be protected at all costs. Now, there's more, because it's not just about that particular situation. There's more information that's come out about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. Now, this was reported from ALX. Listen to this. I'll make this a little bit bigger. Breaking. In private sworn testimony, former acting CIA Director Mike Morrell says that the Biden campaign asked him to organize 50 colleagues to sign a letter in October 2020, falsely claiming that emails from Hunter Biden's laptop published by the New York Post were Russian disinformation. all of Hunter Biden's foolishness is coming out. All of it. Here we now have a former acting CIA director who has come forward and is admitting that the Biden campaign basically told him to lie and say that that article from the New York Post was Russian disinformation. He is not protected. His name is listed. Look at everything that's coming out, you guys. Look at everything that's coming out. Remember when the New York Post wrote that article about Hunter Biden's laptop? Remember what the Twitter files revealed? The Twitter files revealed to you that government agencies told Twitter to suppress or hide that article from the New York Post. And then it was like, you never really heard of it again. That article came out. Nobody else seemed to want to report that story. And just like that, boom, hide it from social media so the word doesn't get out. Same thing they're doing right now with Seymour Hersh's article about the Nord Stream pipeline. There's more. Oh my God, so much is coming out. EMK said, let the lid blow off the damn thing. Exactly. So much corruption is being exposed right now. Let's do it. He goes on to say, he says, Anthony Blinken, now Secretary of State, was the senior campaign official who reached out to him on or before October 17th, 2020. 3 days after the Post published an email from the laptop suggesting Hunter Biden had introduced his Ukrainian business partners to his father. Remember, this was part of the information that was believed to be on that laptop. Now we know, according to this former CIA official, that Anthony Blinken was also in on this. He reached out to him. See how they try to cover for Joe Biden and his family? And when you're thinking about this particular story, I want you to also keep in mind Tara Reade's story. Because what did these government agencies, what did those officials do in reference to protecting Joe Biden when it comes to Tara Reade's story? Who had a hand in that? There's more. We're going to play this clip here. ALX says, flashback. During the 2020 debates, Joe Biden used the letter signed by 50 former intelligence officials to deflect from questions about Hunter's laptop. So I remember this. Let's all watch this again. And for those of you that did not see this at all, you will see it now. Let's all refresh our memories, ladies and gentlemen.
Very quickly. There are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plan. They have said that this has all the 5 former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani. Very quickly. There are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plan.
50 former that were asked to sign that letter. The video doesn't lie, guys. I watched this debate live. I remember this conversation. Oh, Joe, this is all coming out. There's more video. Let me come back in. So that's him revealing himself there. And of course, corporate media parroted the false claim. And I remember this as well, too. This is going to show you, when we talk about corruption, this is going to show you how the State Department and mainstream media work together. Watch how they just followed their lead. Remember this?
Secret emails.
A really fishy story.
The Post claimed that the emails were found on a laptop computer that was brought to a repair shop in Delaware in the spring of 2019.
The FBI is now investigating whether those alleged Hunter Biden emails
are actually connected to a larger foreign intelligence operation.
They may be related to a foreign intelligence operation.
Foreign intelligence operation.
Foreign intelligence.
Foreign intelligence.
Foreign intelligence operation.
For all we know, these emails are made up.
The information found on the laptop may be part of a Russian disinformation campaign.
Part of a Russian disinformation effort.
Described by many intelligence experts as having hallmarks.
All the hallmarks
of a Russian
disinformation.
Russian
disinformation campaign.
This is a classic example of the right-wing media machine. Secret emails.
A really fishy story.
The Post claimed that the emails were found on a laptop computer that was brought to a repair shop in Delaware in the...
Notice they all have the same talking points, different networks, different commentators, but they're all saying the same thing because they got the memo from the State Department. You see, sometimes people, they make these statements on these news segments, and then they forget that they made these statements. And they'll try to lie a year or so later as if we forgot. Now, there's another video that he also has. I told you, this is damning evidence here. Damning evidence. He says here, Biden repeatedly used the letter to deflect questions about the laptop, even after the election. Let's get into this video.
This is classic Trump. We have 4 days left, and all of a sudden there's a laptop. There's overwhelming evidence that from the intelligence community that the Russians are engaged.
I still think that the stories from the fall about your son Hunter were Russian disinformation and a smear campaign, like you said.
Yes. I know you'd ask it. I have no response. It's another smear campaign. It's the last-ditch effort in this desperate campaign to smear me and my family. The vast majority of the intelligence people have come out and said there's no basis at all.
So that happened. So let's go back to the beginning. Again, this is breaking. In private sworn testimony, former acting CIA director Mike Morrell says that the Biden campaign asked him to organize 50 colleagues. Those are the 50 colleagues that Biden mentions during that debate with Donald Trump, to sign a letter in October 2020, falsely, pay attention to the vocabulary, claiming that emails from Hunter Biden's laptop published by the New York Post were Russian disinformation. This is coming from Mike Morrell, former CIA director. Now, here's what's damning about this. In this video, Biden pretty much gives it all away. Listen to the vocabulary he uses. We'll see this one more time.
Very quickly. There are 50 former national intelligence folks.
50. The 50 that were mentioned in that letter. Okay? The 50 that he mentioned at the beginning of that post that the former CIA director mentioned, 50 colleagues.
Who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plant. They have...
Isn't that what the former CIA director just said?
Said that this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage.
5 former heads of the CIA. And one of those former heads is this gentleman right here, Mike Morrell. So even if he tries to come back and deny it and say he never said that, the video footage is clear. So what do you do with this information? What do you do with it? This is corruption at its finest. Let's talk about overreach here for just a second. Anytime you have the president of the United States or his team, his campaign team, so to speak, anytime you have them giving orders to, at the time, he was acting CIA director, giving orders to an acting CIA director to make false claims about a journalist outlet in order to protect the candidate who is running, that is corruption at its finest, and you need to call it out. Look, I never liked Donald Trump, but Trump was right about that. And I think we need to get to a point in this country where we need to realize just because we don't like someone doesn't mean everything that they say is wrong. I'm going to say this again. Just because we don't like someone doesn't mean that everything that they say is wrong. Let's not fall into that camp. So we have the IRS issue with Hunter Biden. And now you have this issue with the Hunter Biden laptop story and the Biden campaign telling a former CIA director to make false claims about that story. Now, if they told you that that article was Russian disinformation and they are now admitting that that was false, what else have they been lying to you about? What else? We're going to get into the next story that we're going to get into. That's the other thing that they're lying to you about when it comes to Russian disinformation. This is not to say that Russia does not have its issues. This is not to say that Putin doesn't have his issues. But what we will say is this: not everything that goes wrong is Russia's fault. Say it again. Not everything that goes wrong is Russia's fault. You have to be very careful about believing that message. Very careful. I'm going to go to some of the comments here. Thank you for the super chat, Roger. Sab happy she must be operating on a full stomach. Yes. Yeah, I got a little hangry yesterday, or not yesterday, but Wednesday. Oh, that was a doozy. Dwayne says, what we have here is an example of the selective application of the rule of law. Exactly. Gamer, come on, man. Record player at night. Man, you know the thing, man. Lawrence says, my stimmy. Joe still owes me $600. Desert says, anyone seen a missing laptop? Anyone? I'll take that comment on Rockfin, Eric. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, JVB. Sabby kicking arse and taking names. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jackie. That's so sweet. You are loved, Sabby. Thank you so much. Bill says our government wants us to believe Russia is a paper tiger when it comes to Ukraine, but that Russia is the greatest threat to the world and a real power when it comes to our election. Right? Which one is it? Oh my God. Whoever said only a rich person loses a laptop. This is true. Because they can just easily buy another one, right? Oh my gosh. Yeah. So that's corruption story number one. Now we're going to move on to corruption story number two. And if you have not heard the news that has come out in reference to the Uhuru movement, the African Socialist People's Party, this is probably one of the most unjust things that I've heard happen this year. Omali Yeshitela, he is the chairman of the African Socialist People's Party, also known as the Uhuru movement. He has been charged. They came after him and they came after a couple others as well for supposedly accepting payments from Russia. They believe that Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru movement, they're Russian like assets or Russian agents, so to speak. I have a lot to say about this particular topic, but first I want to go back and I want to remind you when Omali Yeshitela was on this show and what he had to say. This was actually just after the FBI had raided the Uhuru house in Florida. Now, they had different locations, but they raided that house, left the place a mess, and basically tried to explain to the media that this group, this organization, is a threat and that they're secretly working for Russia. And we're going to have a conversation about the number of times that the United States government has gone after Black socialists, Black radicals in this country. We're going to have a conversation about that. But first, I want to remind you of what Omali Yeshitela said when he came onto my show a couple months ago. I have to say, it's ridiculous. They treated you guys like you were terrorists.
Yeah, they were the terrorists. And you know, part of their objective was to terrorize us. And this charge of being an unindicted co-conspirator is something that is designed to try and isolate us and to frighten people from any kind of association with us, and to make it different. And it's this ongoing need that they have to keep the African liberation movement isolated, so that we're not able to connect with and with any other peoples anywhere in this country, around the world.
That's right. So this piece is incredibly important, to isolate that movement so that they can't grow, to prevent them from connecting with people in the United States. And notice he said across the world, because this is an international movement. They did the same thing to the Black Panthers, you guys. Why do you think they killed Fred Hampton? Why do you think they killed people like Malcolm X? Why do you think they killed people like Martin Luther King Jr.? Why do you think they had people infiltrate these organizations to take them down from the inside? Because even when you look back at Fred Hampton with that chapter with the Black Panther Party, it was one of their own. It was one of their own that took them down. They paid this gentleman to infiltrate the group to take them down. And they got a Black man to do it. That's the more disgusting part. Now, why would he do that? Why would he do it? Because they were threatening to take him to jail. Why were they threatening to take him to jail? Because the crimes that he committed. Why was he committing those crimes? Poverty. This is what it all goes back to. So I guess they couldn't get anybody to infiltrate this movement. So they had to find another way to get them. Let's go on.
And we have this extraordinary program. And I want to invite you, by the way, and I want to invite all of your viewers and listeners, come to St. Louis and come to see concretely what we have done on the ground that makes us such a problem for them. And I think it's important to do that too, because it destroys whatever image they may be trying to create about us being some furtive, slinking force that's somehow working, you know, like with Russians or somebody else. Concretely, we're an extraordinary, transparent organization. You can see what we do and how we've transformed an entire community here. You heard what Akile was saying about the work that we do in St. Petersburg, Florida. I invite you to come here. I invite you to go to our office and our spaces in St. Petersburg, Florida, and in Philadelphia, and in Oakland, California, and in Huntsville, Alabama, and other places where we're actually transforming the conditions of existence that our people have to contend with as a regular part of normal existence in this country.
This is what people have to understand when he talks about transforming the communities. Guys, they weren't just feeding and clothing people. They had like a reparation center. They had like a community center. They had a food bank. Like they were taking care of people in their community, just as the Black Panthers did. And they had 3 locations. The U.S. government sees these Black radical groups, they see them as a problem. And it doesn't even have to be a group sometimes. Sometimes it can just be an individual, and they see them as a problem. Because anytime you try to unify the people and you get the people to understand, listen, These politicians aren't going to do anything for you. Let's all come together and let's help each other. Anytime you try to do those things, they see you as a problem. They see you as a threat. They arrested him. They charged him. And I want to show you what they did to that facility. We're going to go back here because I know I showed the video. It's a short clip. What they did here. For those of you who are not aware.
You have a federal warrant for this address. Keep your hands up and follow orders. This is the FBI. We have a warrant.
They handcuffed me and my wife out here. They wanted me to sit on the curb while they were carrying this out. Something that I refused to do. They wanted my wife to sit on the curb out here that she refused to do.
As I was coming out, this big old drone met me.
Notice she said a drone met her, how they showed up there with guns pointed at them. Guys, they don't go this hard at people who commit mass shootings. They didn't go this hard at the guy, the young boy who killed the people in the church in Charleston. I forget his name, Dylan Roof. They didn't go this hard at Dylan Roof. They took him to get food. And he had just killed people. They didn't kill anybody, guys. And they showed up at their location with guns blazing.
The only revolutionary organization that's done something here on the ground practically for African people is the one that's come under attack. Institution that offers a community radio station, a newspaper, a commercial kitchen, an Aquaba Hall rental space, and community office for our organizers. That was the building that has come under attack.
That's the Solidarity Center.
Need a breach? What do you need? Need one? I don't know. I'll tell Ben that money. Thank you.
All of this for people who have done nothing violent. They were held at gunpoint while their homes were raided. You see how they treat the black radicals? Like I told you, they do not treat mass murderers this way.
We will build a movement of white people that says hands off the Uhuru movement.
They see in the African People's Socialist Party a vanguard for the struggle for the liberation of our people. They see that because not just what we do here in the United States, but because we had the temerity to do like Garvey, to do like Malcolm X, and take the struggle of black people around the world.
And it said, stop the FBI attacks on the African People's Socialist Party. Now, this interview took place. Let me zoom out here for just a second. Sorry, I've done a lot of interviews, guys. I'd be forgetting when things happened. This interview took place 7 months ago, September 7th, 2022, and he was charged recently. Let me tell you what they're trying to get them with. U.S. charges 4 Americans with aiding Kremlin efforts. And of course, there's Merrick Garland, who still, by the way, has the power to free Julian Assange. Let's go on. The FBI signaled its interest in the alleged activities in a series of raids last summer, at which point authorities charged a Moscow man, that's Alexander Vitorik-Ivanov, with working for years on behalf of the Russian government officials to fund and direct fringe political groups in the U.S. Remember when I tell you to pay attention to the vocabulary, right? This is why I tell you this. You'll notice a lot of these people using the same vocabulary, certain words that stand out. Fringe political groups. I played a video for you a couple nights ago where someone referred to Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr. as fringe candidates. All these people, they're all in on it. They're all repeating State Department talking points. You have to pay attention to the vocabulary. Among other things, Ivanov allegedly advised the political campaigns of 2 unidentified candidates for public office in Florida. Ivanov's influence efforts were allegedly directed and supervised by officers of the FSB, a Russian government intelligence service. Now, authorities have added charges against 4 Americans, make this a little bit bigger, 4 Americans who allegedly did Ivanov's bidding through groups including the African Socialist People's Party and the Uhuru movement in Florida, Black Hammer in Georgia, an unidentified political group in California. Now, they were able to figure all this out, but the group in California is unidentified. Make it make sense. Part of an effort to influence American politics. Can you believe this shit? Authorities said Ivanov sought to use the groups to promote Russia's occupation of part of Ukraine and influential invasion of that country in 2022. Does that make sense to you? Does that sound right? The charged Americans are the African People's Socialist Party leaders Amali Yeshitela, Penny Joanne Hess, Jesse Neville, and Augustus C. Romaine Jr., all of whom reside or used to reside in St. Petersburg, Florida. Russian Foreign Intelligence Service allegedly weaponized our First Amendment rights, freedoms Russia denies its own citizens, to divide Americans and interfere in elections in the United States. How did those people... Let me go on. I'm going to come back to that. Assistant Attorney General Matthew G. Olson said in a written statement, the Justice Department, he said, will not hesitate to expose and prosecute those who sow discord and corrupt U.S. elections in service of hostile foreign interest, regardless of whether the culprits are U.S. citizens or foreign individuals abroad. First of all, what are the foreign interests? This is a problem. The charges filed in federal court in Tampa accuse Ivanov of running the anti-globalization movement of Russia, which U.S. officials say is funded by the Russian government and directed by FSB officers, Alexei and Yegor. The 3 Russians and 4 Americans are charged with conspiring to have U.S. citizens act as illegal, unregistered agents of the Russian government. I don't think the Uhuru movement needs the help of Russia to organize a community of Black people. You see the problem? How many people they said this about? How many people they say? They said this about MLK. They said this about Fred Hampton. They said this about Malcolm X. Anytime you speak out against the establishment, you try to build something for your own, you're seen as a threat, especially if you start growing. They had everything. They had everything for the community, you guys. They had their own newspaper. They had food pantry. They had their own solidarity center. They were providing for people in the community on their own. The hostility that the U.S. government has towards Black radicals, and I mean this very seriously, towards Black radicals, it's a problem in this country. And you have to push back and fight against this, you guys. Now, maybe one of those things where people say, well, how do you know? How do you know that they didn't? How do you know that they did? How do you know that they did? You don't know. They don't even have to present this information to you. All they have to do is smear it and smear them and the organization, and the American people, for the most part, will believe it. That's all they have to do. Have we learned nothing? What is it? Just a couple months ago, what did I tell you? That Malcolm X family is suing the NYPD and the FBI and the CIA for killing Malcolm X. When does it end? So this is not right. This is not right. You have to push back on this and stand up against this. This is corruption number 2. The way the federal government, these government agencies will go after and take down Black radicals. This has been a problem in this country for a long time in an attempt to silence them. Meanwhile, let me make something make sense to you, okay? They'll come after them and take down them and point guns at their face. They were not hostile towards the FBI at all. But they'll allow militant, racist, white groups to do what they want. Somebody explain this to me. You can have the march in Charlottesville. You can push people. You can punch people, right? Dylan Roof can walk into a church and shoot innocent Black people, and they're going to take them to get some food. You can do all of that. But you have a Black organization while they were sleeping in their homes, and you show up with guns blazing and you point guns in their face, and you have a militarized force that shows up to take them down, and they have not committed violence upon anyone. Make it make sense. This country does not care about these rights and these efforts. They don't care about your rights. You don't have any rights. You think you have rights? You don't. You think you have a Second Amendment right? Really? Who can carry the gun? Where can you carry it? Can you take it across state lines? Who gets stopped for carrying a gun? Who? How many times you see the police officers shoot a Black man who had a gun that he was licensed to carry? You think you got Second Amendment rights? You ain't got no rights. You don't even have free speech. Look at how they take you down. Look at what they did to Julian Assange. Look at what they're doing to Daniel Hale. Look at what they're doing to Mumia. Look at what they're doing, how they're demonetizing people and removing people from platforms. You ain't got no free speech in this fucking country. Make it make sense, people. I'm trying to get this through to you. You don't have rights. What you have is a pass that they let you hold on to until they're ready to take that shit away. That's what you have. And Matt Taibbi, another one. We're going to get into that story. Look at what they're trying to do to Matt Taibbi. They want to send him to jail. No rights. None. Nada. Now, I don't like to just give you the problem. I want to tell you how you can help them, because this piece is important, because I want you to know there is something that you can do. Obviously, because of what is happening, they are facing a lot of legal fees. We knew this was coming. So let me make sure I pull this up for you, because I want you to have this information. And I'll put this link in the chat too. Let me present this. But I wanted to be very clear to you guys. We don't have these rights. Now, here's how you can help. Let me make this bigger for you. Hands off Uhuru. Let me pull this over here. Thank you. Hands off Uhuru. Hands off Africa Defense Campaign. So they are trying to raise funds, you guys. They are fundraising to help pay for the legal defense. They are going to need one hell of a legal team. One hell of a legal team. And there's different contributions that you can make. So I'm going to put this in the chat. Instead of donating to a politician, donate to this, okay? Because this is what they're going to do. Because I'm going to tell you, I've seen this before. What they're going to try to do is they're going to try to drain them with legal fees. They drain you with the legal fees, then you have no money left. So even if you do win the case, you have nothing to go back to. That's what they do. So if you can, please help them out. Please donate. But the assault on civil liberties that we have among the American people, this isn't right. This is not right. Now, Glenn Greenwald touched on this on Tucker Carlson's show of all places. Tucker Carlson talked about this. You know who I noticed did not talk about this? A lot of left independent media commentators. A lot of people in independent media do not want to touch this story. We see you. We see you. And I'm going to keep it real. I'm going to keep it 100. Hold on. Because it's Friday and I got time tonight. I'm going to keep it 100. If you can talk about civil liberties in reference to Julian Assange with no shade on that, I talk about that as well. But you sit here silent about this group of Black people that have just been charged by the Justice Department. I see you. We see you for what you are. Now let's get into this speech, this vid here with Glenn Greenwald and Tucker Carlson, because this needs to be said. It's a damn shame that out of all the outlets, Tucker Carlson is willing to talk about this. But you can't even get liberal media to talk about it. You think they care about you? If you're watching me right now, I'll make this very clear. I told you both of the parties are trash. But I'm going to make something very clear to you. If you are African American and you're watching this right now, if that don't tell you that the Democratic Party and the liberal media don't give a boop about you, I don't know what else will. I don't know what else will. Let's go on.
The latest group of Americans to find their constitutionally protected opinions become felonies are, believe it or not, an organization of Black nationalist left-wingers who oppose the war in Ukraine. The DOJ has just charged many in this group with seeking to, quote, sow discord, spread pro-Russia propaganda, and interfere in elections within the United States. Now, there's no evidence they interfered with any election. You're allowed to be pro-Russia. You're allowed to be pro-anything you want in the United States. Saying things the government doesn't like, having unfashionable opinions or opinions that are out of step with Joe Biden's opinions, that is not a crime. You can spread pro-Russia propaganda if you want to. You can spread anti-Russia propaganda if you want to. You can say whatever you want, but not anymore. According to the indictment, the criminals in question, quote, wrote articles that contained Russian propaganda and disinformation. Huh? They also gave speeches and posted videos that annoyed the State Department. Here's one of them.
There's a discussion about Russian military border buildup on its border with Ukraine, and how this represents a terrible threat to Ukraine by Russia. But there is no acknowledgement of the history that took us to this place, how the U.S. overthrew, participated in facilitating the overthrow of a government in Ukraine that was friendly to the Soviet Union. Nor does it talk about the history of this relationship between Ukraine and Russia. This is an ongoing aggression. It did not just start. It's been going on for a while, but the U.S. government relies on the ignorance of the people in this country and much of the world that's facilitated by people like Zuckerberg.
So, for whatever it's worth, we're not really sure who that guy is. We know he's American. Pretty sure that on a lot of issues, we likely would not agree with him. A lot of what he just said in that video seems to be true. But even if it weren't true, even if he was wrong, it would still be constitutionally protected speech. In a free country, which we had until recently, you are allowed by definition to have dumb opinions. Most of us do, but not anymore. So that man you just saw is facing 10 years behind bars for expressing views about Ukraine that the Biden administration doesn't want to hear.
And this is a point I want to add as well. Let's say you are wrong. So what? So what? CNN's wrong half the damn day, and they do 24-hour news. I don't see the DOJ trying to bring them to any type of trial. I don't see the DOJ trying to charge them with anything. MSNBC lied to you for what, 2-3 years about Russiagate? Do you see the DOJ trying to arrest Rachel Maddow? No, you don't. Because she's a pawn of the State Department.
That's terrifying. Does no one else think that's terrifying? It is terrifying. And to that man's credit, whoever he is, he saw it coming. Here he is at a rally last month.
They have declared that black people are so stupid that it takes Russians to tell us that we are oppressed. I have never known a moment of black freedom for my entire life. I have never read of a moment since the beginning of a colonial mode of production where black people have been free. And yet they're saying that we are agents of some foreign power because we say black people must be free.
Okay, again, we're not defending that guy because we agree with all of his views. We probably don't. That is totally irrelevant. Whether you agree with what someone is saying has nothing to do with his right to say it.
But I want to add something here, and I agree with that. The fact that he's saying whether you agree with them or not, that has nothing to do with their right to say it. And this is the problem we've come to in this country, where people have gotten to the point where they feel like because they disagree with you, you shouldn't even say it. That's the point where we've come to in this country. That's the problem. Very strange times that we're living in. I feel like we've gone backwards instead of forwards in this country. In reference to what Amalia Shatella said about black people needing to depend on Russia or whatever, yada, yada, that was bizarre to me too. I'm just like, well, you think like a group of black people can't get together and form their own community and provide for their own community on their own? You think they have to have help or influence from Russia? What the hell is that?
Americans are allowed to say what they think is true, period. If they take that right away, you are no longer a citizen, you are a slave. Glenn Greenwald is the host of System Updates. He joins us tonight. Glenn, thanks so much for coming on. I'm actually in some ways glad that they went after a group of people I probably don't agree with on a lot of things, because it just makes it so much clearer. This is not partisan. This guy is saying something the regime doesn't like, and they're trying to put him in jail. How is this happening in America?
I think one of the critical things to remember is even before January 6th, Biden administration said their priority is to launch a domestic war on terror, to take all the tactics we used against Al-Qaeda and ISIS and foreign terrorist groups and direct it inward because they perceive that anti-establishment dissidents in America, like the person you just showed, are the real enemy. And that's what this is about.
Yep.
There's a foreign agents law that is supposed to be if you say things you don't really believe because some foreign government is paying you millions of dollars to say them, you have to register. That's not the case with these people. These are people who have been radical black leftists for decades. They're not the people the Democratic Party likes. They hate the Biden administration. They're against the war in Ukraine. And they claim that they found $500 here, $2,000 there that have origins in the Russian government for events they did. This is what we criticize Russia for. We fund opposition groups in Russia, and then Russia says those are foreign agents. And we object and we say a foreign agent is only somebody saying things a foreign government tells them to say. And now we're using that same theory. We say Russia makes Russia tyrannical to criminalize dissent in the United States. That's what this case is about.
So what's so interesting about this is these are not MAGA people. These are the victims of systemic racism they're always lecturing us about, right? And their First Amendment rights have just been stripped, and they're looking at jail terms for having opinions Biden doesn't like. Where are the liberals? Where's Morning Joe? Where are all the sensitive white liberals to defend these people?
They're hiding. And the same thing on the left, too. It's not just the liberals. It's also people on the left who are not talking about this story at all. Not covering it at all. They're hiding. Whoa, let's not touch that one. That's a little bit too radical. There's race involved. May not want to go down that road. Because even some of the people that say that they're left per se, even they only willing to go so far. Let's be real. To this point that they were just bringing up, this idea that, oh, they may have taken some payments, a $500 payment here, $500 payment there, da-da-da-da. This coming from a government that's Pentagon can't even pass an audit. Why don't you go track down some of those funds and find out where that money went? Why don't you go do something like that? Right? Don't you have some billionaires to go catch or something? Don't you have some multimillionaires that have been misappropriating funds that you should be going after? Don't you have real crooks and criminals on the streets? No, you're going to go after black radicals. That's more threatening to them. It's a big problem in this country.
They're not. Well, this is why I'm so glad you're covering this case, Tucker, because this is the tactic that tyrants always use. When they want to implement an authoritarian precedent, they choose people that makes others uncomfortable. When they wanted to start banning people from the internet, they chose Milo Yiannopoulos and Alex Jones because they knew that even Republicans would say, I don't want to defend those people. They're a bridge too far. And then the precedent gets set and they expand it inward. Again, these are not people the kind of black radicals Democratic Party establishment representatives like. They're people who attack the Biden administration, who don't vote Democrat. These are real dissidents, and they know that not even Democrats will defend them.
No, they're not taking money from Apple and Facebook. They weren't in on the BLM scam. They actually mean it. Now you're making me like them. Glenn Greenwald, I appreciate your coming on tonight and getting, as you always do, to the core issues underneath it all. Thank you.
Great to be with you, Tucker. Thanks.
So do you know what it feels like to be someone in left independent media and you have people like Tucker Carlson who are covering this story, but you have people in left independent media that won't touch this story? I almost didn't want to bring it up, but I'm going to bring it up because someone mentioned it in the chat. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go there. Someone said, where is Bernie Sanders? You know, I tweeted about this earlier and I said, has any member of the squad said anything about this story? Anything about Chairman Amali Yeshitela being charged? Nope. AOC, Miss, I'm a socialist. You say anything about this group of socialists that are being charged? Nothing. It's embarrassing. Now I'll show you again, because again, I want you to help if you can. Hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa Defense Campaign. Please help them in support of the right of African people to organize for liberation, building support for legal defense and organizing work. They are going to have, again, hella legal fees. Eric, can you put the link to that in the chat? You get a chance. Hella legal fees. So there's different ways that you can contribute. And like I said, they're going to try to break them legally first. They're going to eat you up with legal fees. And then even if you win, you have nothing to go back to. That's what the whole point. Terrible, terrible, terrible. I'll take that comment on Rockfin. A hot mess. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. Let this be a reminder to everyone out there against reparations, telling Black people to get off our lazy bums and bootstrap our way to freedom and stop depending on the government, welfare, or whatever other government program they want to stereotype us into. Every time we do for self, we get knocked the F back on our ass by the government, a lot of times working in concert with local governments. Thank you for the tip, Hemp Car. Will the Republicans admit they killed MLK for telling the truth on Vietnam and occupying DC? Yeah, he was working for Radio Hanoi, Yet the KGB had files on him too for pacifying communists. He'd be called a Putin bot today. Dems won't admit this either. Identical parties funded by identical big gun banks, oil and pharma, Exxon and JP Morgan, Raytheon and Pfizer are their constituency, not us. Repeat apparent point. Well said. Let me go to some of these comments here and we'll go to the next story. Thank you so much for the super sticker, African82. Jay says anything or anyone outside of the establishment uniparty is a target. Lawrence, wouldn't it be nice if we still had habeas corpus, a judicial right first granted in the Magna Carta? Wouldn't that be nice? Thank you for the super chat, Seeking Freedom. Silence from TYT, Majority Report, The Hill. Nope, The Hill covered this, I think. I think The Hill did cover this. Breaking Points and more. What'd I tell you? Notori, so basically the American government is doing warfare on its people. Bingo. Thank you for the super chat, Benny. We are all next. We had best be loud. You're going to go out. Go all the way out. Thank you for the super sticker, Susan. Thank you for the super chat, Beth. If you lie on behalf of the oppressors, you're celebrated. If you tell the truth on behalf of the oppressed, you're persecuted. There you go. Ding, ding, ding. Rupert says the Uhuru movement is a genuine movement, not an FBI, CIA fake construct. So they try to destroy them. And thank you for this super chat, Benny. This is happening at the same time programmable money is getting pushed. Watch all the hands at once. Your money is power here. Be careful. All well said. The point that I made there about the fact that they would make this assumption that a Black community organization would need some type of help from Russia, whatever. It's really interesting. And I say this because Russia was not one of the countries that colonized Africa. Oh, not supposed to say that though. Always remember that. All right, we're moving on to this story here about Matt Taibbi being threatened. This is corruption story number 3. I told you all these stories and I deal with corruption. Matt Taibbi being threatened with prison time. This has gone too far. I've been talking to people about this, I think the past, 24 hours. This whole situation with Matt Taibbi in the Twitter files and the level that it has been taken to the point where he has been smeared, where he was invited onto that interview with Mehdi Hassan and he was attacked there. And this has gone too far now to the point where you have people in Congress that want Matt Taibbi to go to prison for 5 years. Now, Ryan Grimm was the first person that I saw tweet this out. Democrat Representative Stacey Plaskett is threatening Matt Taibbi with prison over his Twitter files testimony. The testimony is actually accurate, though. She's referring to an error in a tweet that's been corrected. That's besides the point. To call for a reporter to be jailed is beyond the pale. Now, do you see why we continue to say free Julian Assange? Edward Snowden should have been the first big warning sign. Now, do you see journalists are not protected? You have government officials calling for journalists to be imprisoned. Now, I want to show you the letter because I want you to see what they actually said. This is just ridiculous. Let me make sure. Oh, I think I got the wrong. Oh, yeah, he did put the link there. Sorry about that. I forgot he did put the link here. So you can see the letter there, but it's hard. If I click on it, you might not be. I want to show you the full part. So he put the link here. Let me see if it'll let me show it because it's PDF. Okay, yeah, it does. So here's the letter. Whee! And it says Matthew Taibbi. We're going to get to the part I want you to see because this letter's kind of long and I know you don't want to read all that jazz. Let me go down. This part right here. Let me come out just a little bit. I would like to provide you with the opportunity to correct the hearing record to ensure accuracy in congressional hearing and so that the public and their representatives are not misled. Specifically, on March 9th, immediately before your appearance before the subcommittee, you released an additional installment of the so-called, look at, again, pay attention to the vocabulary, so-called Twitter files on your personal Twitter. As part of that installment, you allege that the Election Integrity Partnership, the EIP, worked with Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, a component of the Department of Homeland Security, to ask social media companies to remove disinformation on these platforms. You wrote, it is crucial to reiterate, EIP was partnered with state entities like CISA and GEC while seeking elimination of millions of tweets. In the Twitter files, Twitter execs did not distinguish between organizations using phrases like according to CIS, and then there's the A there, escalated via EIP. So they have the screenshot there. This was the error that Mehdi Hassan was trying to get him on in that interview. We'll check that out in just a second. But this is the piece I want you to hone in on right here. The above statements now seem to be contradicted by your own admission. On April 6, 2023, you appeared for an interview on the Mehdi Hassan show on MSNBC. During that interview, Mr. Hassan pointed out that your March 9th tweet added a parenthetical A to the acronym CIS, changing the meaning of the term from Center for Internet Security, a private organization, to Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. This mistake is important because by adding an A, you weren't making a harmless spelling error. Rather, you were alleging that CISA, a government entity, was working with the EIP to have posts removed from social media. When presented with this misinformation, you acknowledged that you made an error. This is why I say that interview was a trap. This was Mehdi Hassan trying to find a way to prove or to make people believe that Matt Taibbi is not credible. And if he can convince people that you're not credible, he convinces people that your work is not credible. And now everything that you have revealed about the Twitter files can be dismissed by the American people because he was able to do a gotcha. But as we showed on the show, thanks to Li Feng, it actually wasn't a gotcha. Li Feng had actually explained that Matt Taibbi actually was correct. But this was a setup. Do you guys see what happened here? Mehdi Hasan back in the State Department. So he repeats State Department talking points. They coexist together. He not going to work against them. He going to work and cooperate with them. That's how he gets to keep that job. That's why he gets paid the big bucks. That's how this works. This is why I wish Matt didn't do that interview. This was all a setup. Let's go on. This piece right here, in addition to your error regarding CISA, it has become clear that your reporting is rife with numerous other false or misleading claims. You see what they're doing? All they had to do was find one thing, which is what Mehdi Hasan believes that he did. He finding one thing, and then they're able to dismiss all of it. They point out here, during March 9th, you repeatedly referred to the Twitter file post you had released earlier that day. Among other claims, your March 9th post stated, according to the EIP's own data, it succeeded in getting nearly 22 million tweets labeled in the run-up to the 2020 vote. It goes on to say here, in fact, the EIP analyzed 21,897,364 tweets discussing false claims in 2020. From that data set, it identified just 2,890 tweets as being a violation of Twitter's stated policies because, for example, those tweets led to phishing. So this led down a rabbit hole. We're not going to go through each one of these, but I want to show you what they're basically trying to do now. Accordingly, as soon as possible, but no later than April 21st, which is today, please provide answers to the following questions. So these are all the questions. And see, you got to be careful because how he answers these questions could be tricky as well. This could also be a trap. And then right here, it says, prior to your appearance before the subcommittee on March 9th, you signed the Judiciary Committee's Truth and Testimony form, certifying that you understood that knowingly providing material, false information to this committee, subcommittee, or knowingly concealing material or information from this committee or subcommittee is a crime. In addition, at the beginning of March 9th hearing, you swore under penalty of perjury that the testimony you were about to give was true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief. Under federal perjury statute, providing false information is punishable up to 5 years of imprisonment. And this is signed by Stacey Plaskett, the same Stacey Plaskett that I revealed to you that took donations from Jeffrey Epstein after he was arrested. Direct payments from Jeffrey Epstein after he was arrested. Remember, she represents the Virgin Islands. What has it been revealed about the Virgin Islands and Jeffrey Epstein? That's where his island was. That JP Morgan knowingly knew they were funding that. And she took money from him after he was arrested. This is coming from her. But I don't think it's just her too. I don't think it's just her. She's a part of the Democratic Party. Who's the minority speaker of the House? Hakeem Jeffries. So I'm sure he okayed this too. This is what they're trying to do to Matt Taibbi. That interview with Mehdi Hasan was a setup. It was a trap. And I say this repeatedly because it was after that interview that because Matt Taibbi admitted to making an error, Mehdi Hasan went on to tweet and say that he committed perjury. And then you get this letter saying perjury is a crime. I'm sorry, but I believe this was all planned. Now, Lee Fong, he debunked this. I want to show you where he debunked it. He said, here is my first Substack story. Mehdi Hasan claimed Taibbi deliberately and under oath misrepresented the facts about DHS, CISA's work with content moderation org EIP. That is a serious charge, one that I debunk with the new Twitter file, emails, and other docs. And that's his Substack. Mehdi claimed Taibbi lied under oath to Congress, a felony that can be prosecuted with prison, by claiming CISA worked with EIP on content moderation. Mehdi says the truth is that only a private sector org with a similar acronym, CIS, worked with EIP. Mehdi is wrong, and here is how. EIP had an internal ticketing system to flag content for censorship to Twitter, and an internal message system to alert CIS and CISA. DHS/CISA elevate EIP flag tweets for Twitter. Here is a newly unearthed Twitter email in October 2020 showing the process. And here's that email right here. I had outreach on this from DHS and the CA Secretary of State. This EIP report we reviewed last week and found no enforcement was warranted. Now they say, based on Graphica's analysis, that there is a foreign implication. Can you take a look at the information below? Look at who it went to. Brian Scully, CISA Central, CFITF, misinformation reports, right? And it says here, Brian, we know many are already aware of this case, but the impact seems to be escalating. Our hope is that the platforms can do more to take down this misinformation. The EIP has been tracking this spread under ticket EIP 243 and has more examples. Case in point, it says CISA right here. So Matt was correct. And this is the point that Lee Fang was trying to point out. This was all a trap. All of it. Now, I encourage you to please check out this video. I'm not going to play it on here. This clip that I did is called Congresswoman Donations Raise Huge Flags. There's some things you need to see about Congresswoman Plaskett. By the way, I find it very interesting that someone who was a delegate, she's a delegate, she's a low-ranking official. She can't even vote. So I find it interesting that someone who is low-ranking has that much power. Now, to take you back, this is the point where Mehdi attempts to do the gotcha.
Down by 22 million were flagged in the run-up to the election, even though that number came in March 2021, which was after the election.
No, this came in their report after the election.
Which was about some total of tweets that they counted on the election. What they flagged to Twitter was 2,980 tweets, I believe. So that's nowhere near 22 million.
Come
on, what? You got something wrong. You got CISA wrong. Why did you add A? Okay, Matt, why did you add A in square brackets? Do you understand why people worry about?
I actually thought that.
And why didn't you fix it? I just checked the tweet before I came on air. It's been 3 weeks since it was flagged to you. Why not fix it? Do you not have editors at the racket?
I didn't realize that until now.
Okay, and what about the date? You got the date wrong when it was founded. You said it was founded in response to the Disinformation Board. That was last year.
Well, because Stamos is saying in the video that we were sort of created to fill the gaps.
But no, that's not what you say in the tweet. That's not what you say in the tweet.
The SIO was created in 2008.
No. You say, this is what you say, that the EIP was created after the public uproar paused the Disinformation Board. That's wrong. You need to correct that as well, don't you?
After the...
That's what your words. You say, to quote you, after public uproar paused the Orwellian Disinformation Governance Board, Stanford created the EIP. That's wrong.
Well, that's what they say.
You don't need sources, Matt. You could check the EIP website. It says it was created in 2020.
Well, that's the date that I just said.
And the Disinformation Board was 2022.
Okay. All right. Well, then that is an error.
But according to Li Fong, Matt was actually correct. You see, I told you that interview was a take me down. That's what it was. Let's convince people that, he's not credible. Matt Taibbi has responded. He says, "Dear Mehdi Hasan, here's the EIP website saying it partnered with CISA, the CIS site saying the same thing, and the award showing CIS is a DHS contractor. You're wrong on this, and you convinced a politician to threaten me with jail as a result. This has gone too far." And that was exactly the response that I gave to Ryan Grimm when he sent out that tweet. I was like, this has gone too far. Like, this is ridiculous. When I checked, Mehdi hadn't responded. He probably hiding now. I can check it again another time. But when I checked, he had not responded. And he gives the receipts right here. So what I'm going to say is this. We have news networks and journalist outlets that have become snitches now. They're doing the FBI's job for them. Look at the situation that happened with the Washington Post, where they ratted out the information about Jack, the guy who, allegedly leaked the Pentagon documents, right? That was the Washington Post that did that. And you got Mehdi Hasan trying to turn over people. You have mainstream media networks and these journalist outlets becoming cops. That's what you have. Now, Michael Schellenberger issued a response as well. I'm glad that he's speaking out in reference to Matt Taibbi, because Elon sure as hell isn't.
Last month, Matt Taibbi and I testified to Congress about the existence of a censorship industrial complex. The night before, the U.S. government's Federal Trade Commission sent an extraordinary letter to Twitter owner Elon Musk.
The first FTC letter to Twitter after the first set of Twitter files, the very first question was, who are the journalists you're talking to?
Demanding that he, quote, identify all journalists involved in the reporting of the Twitter files. Then, at the very moment that members of Congress were accusing Matt and me of being fake journalists.
This isn't just a matter of what data was given to these so-called journalists before us now.
An IRS agent visited Matt's home. They still haven't explained why.
Yep.
Happily, the attacks backfired. The members of Congress went too far, and their deliberate or accidental use of sexual innuendos.
So you're in this as a threesome?
Made them a laughingstock on social media. But it turns out that they weren't done. 2 weeks ago, I heard from a whistleblower that the censorship industry would shortly retaliate against us. It turned out that at that very moment, MSNBC host Mehdi Hasan was berating Matt Taibbi on air.
The man who used to gleefully heap abuse on the outrage industrial complex on Fox now appears regularly on that very propaganda network he once so wonderfully lampooned.
Shortly after, Hasan and a chorus of others in the mainstream news media falsely claimed that they had debunked the Twitter files. Now, the same member of Congress who called us so-called journalists is threatening Taibbi with prison time for supposedly lying to Congress. Representative Stacey Plaskett sent Matt a letter that recycles the same false MSNBC allegations that we debunked and ends by saying he could face 5 years imprisonment. Never in my life have I seen members of Congress threaten an expert witness with prison time. For the record, Matt's statements were accurate. A small error was made in a tweet, and as soon as Matt learned of it, he corrected it, as all ethical journalists would do. And now Li Fong, formerly of The Intercept and now writing at Substack, has thoroughly debunked MSNBC's claims. Yep. What's more, Fong discovered that Hasan has repeatedly engaged in dis and misinformation himself including plagiarism.
MSNBC host Mehdi Hasan authored a column in defense of spanking children. No harm in smacking. That is nearly a word-for-word duplication of the article When to Spank, published 2 years earlier in U.S. News and World Report.
I covered that earlier tonight on RBN. So Mehdi Hasan has some nerve to criticize someone else's journalistic work because he apparently has been plagiarizing people for years. He just didn't get caught.
The bottom line is this. The Twitter files blew the lid off the censorship industrial complex, and its leaders are retaliating, not just to scare us off, but to scare away other journalists. But here's the thing. They don't scare us. They energize us. We are undertaking a major effort to expose the connections between the censorship industrial complex and the military and intelligence communities in the so-called Five Eyes nations of the US, UK, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. We are hiring several people to do the research and turn the table on the would-be totalitarians.
There you go.
All of this is happening at the same time that Facebook is cracking down on people who are raising questions about the war in Ukraine. The individuals who come from spy agencies who are now demanding censorship of their fellow citizens are breaking the law. They know we have caught them in the act, and they are scared. They should be scared. We can't do this alone. If you know something, say something. You may work in a government agency or for a think tank or university working on so-called mis and disinformation.
I'm sorry, when he said this part right here, where is it? Hold on, this part.
Individuals who come from spy agencies who are now demanding censorship of their fellow citizens are breaking the law. They know we have caught them in the act, and they are scared. They should be scared. We can't do this alone. If you know something, say something.
That part right there, when he said, if you know something, say something. Right after he said that, I was like, you too can prevent forest fires. I'm just being silly now.
You may work in a government agency or for a think tank or university working on so-called mis and disinformation. We need to hear from you. We will protect all confidences. We have already heard from several whistleblowers, and we need more. Just yesterday, an IRS whistleblower came forward to say that the IRS was giving special treatment to President Joe Biden's son, Hunter. Courage is contagious. And if you're still not a subscriber to Public, now is the time to join. If you would like to make a larger tax-deductible donation, please visit environmentalprogress.com/give. As always, please email me at my encrypted email address, michaelschellenberger@proton.me. When Matt and I testified to Congress about the existence of a censorship industrial complex, we were just getting started. We won't rest until we dismantle it and bury its parts deep underground.
Kudos to Michael Schellenberger for, defending Matt and working with him and continuing to work with him. That is a stand-up act. That's solid. He did a solid. Not too many people willing to do that. Just going to tell you. Most people will run. Most people will hide. Some of them mofos will disappear. Let's just be honest. So kudos to Michael Schellenberger for that. He gave his email address up there for you guys if you need that to contact him. Corey, I think we can move on to the second set whenever you're ready. But times are crazy. But what does it all mean? I want you to look at the big picture. The big picture is not just about the fact that they're coming after Matt Taibbi. That's just a small piece of this. They're coming after Matt Taibbi, but they're also coming after every independent journalist, period. But they're not just coming after them. What is the end game? Why are they doing this? They're doing this to instill fear in the American people. They're doing this to instill fear in journalists, independent journalists, you, me. You see, if they can threaten someone like Matt Taibbi, who's a phenomenal journalist, they can threaten him with prison time, and they still have Julian Assange in Belmarsh. Then that will scare enough people to not want to report the truth. This is what you have to understand. This is all about fear. And if they make you afraid, they have control. Fear is very powerful. As long as you are afraid, they are in control. That is the end game. And that is why they're doing this. It's not just about Matt. It's about every independent journalist, free speech, revealing tough truths that they don't want the masses to hear. And that's why Julian Assange still sits in Belmarsh, even though he has not been formally charged with the crime. That was corruption story number 3. We're going to our final corruption story here. And this is RFK Jr. So RFK Jr., he had his presidential announcement here in Boston. I covered it on the ground. I am sorry for the audio. Eric and I, Eric's my producer. We're figuring some things out. I mean, I have what I have. I don't have the best equipment. I will say the Wi-Fi was kind of finicky also. So that was also an issue. But that being said, I hope you got to see something from the coverage or whatever. But that being said, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he's another one that's revealed some uncomfortable truths. And while we were there at his announcement, there was an alarm that went off in the building and it made me a little spooked. I was like, wait a minute, what's happening? While he was speaking, all of a sudden an alarm goes off. We're all just like, what do we do? Voice comes over the intercom and a voice says, there is an emergency in this building. First thing I thought to myself is, that's it. This is how it ends. Right before I got to the announcement, I received messages from people telling me to be very careful going to this event because of the message that he has. And then that alarm went off. But we cannot allow ourselves to be controlled by fear. I thought his speech was pretty decent for the most part. I will say I thought his speech was pretty long. That speech was long. So if I was him, I would cut back on some of the stories and focus more on policy. Some people disagreed. Some people said they really liked hearing all those different stories, right? He made a couple jokes. He said that he's been censored for 18 years, so he has a lot to say. And he did have a lot to say. But one of the things he spoke out about was the military-industrial complex. And I have a clip here that I want to play for you. And I think it's important for people to hear this. Because this is something that I feel even Bernie Sanders didn't go this far. He's kind of to the left of Bernie Sanders on certain issues. He called out the CIA. He called out the military-industrial complex. He called out mass media. He talked about how the media was corrupt. He was willing to call out entities that Bernie Sanders was not willing to do. Bernie Sanders wouldn't even call out the media, and they were smearing him to his face. But there are still some things here that I think he needs to work on. And I'll get to that in just a second. But I want you to hear this clip from him here about the MIC, where he talks about what happened, with his father and his uncle. And he tackles how poverty at home is connected to war abroad.
Military-industrial complex, right? That destroyed democracy. My father died in his campaign against the Vietnam War. Martin Luther King wrote with the Civil Rights Movement on Vietnam, and he said, this has got to be our priority. Because you're not seeing that there's a direct link between poverty at home and war, poverty and violence, and oppression at home and war abroad. You cannot separate them. As long as we're getting war, as long as they go back our weapons in war, we will never have a middle class in this country.
Okay, so what he said there was, poverty at home is connected to war abroad. He did tackle the war issue very well. And he had a message about Russia and Ukraine that I think actually made sense. I felt like it was pretty logical and fair. That statement is also on his campaign website. I think you should just go read that because, like I said, my audio was not the best, so I apologize. It's too late to apologize. Anywho, he talked about those things, and there are a couple of things I do want to say. There were two examples where I felt like he does want to have like one foot on one side and one foot on the other side at the same time. One was with the CIA and one was with the Democratic Party. One of the things that he said is that, the Democratic Party is a problem. But then he went on to say that he wants to take the Democratic Party and change it and take it back to what it was when his father was a part of it and when his uncle was a part of it. He believes that he can reform it. You guys know I don't believe that. I don't believe you can reform the Democratic Party. The other statement that he made was in reference to the CIA. He talked about how the CIA is problematic, right? He talked about how they've had their hands in things that they should not have. He called out the Bay of Pigs. He also called out where he felt like his uncle JFK made some mistakes. But then he went on to say that one of the leaders of his campaign is his daughter-in-law, who is former CIA. And it may be your daughter-in-law, but she still was a part of the CIA. So this is not to say you have to disown your daughter-in-law, but I would not have a former CIA official a part of my campaign. So that was another thing that I was kind of like, yeah, you can't have both ways. So for me, I was like, no. No. But he appeared on Tucker Carlson recently where he talked about socialism for the rich. And I want you to hear this. I didn't know Tucker Carlson was going to be on here this much, but I want you to hear two different ways that he's presented to the public. I want you to listen to him on Tucker Carlson. Then I'm going to show you what they said about him on CNN. And then I'm going to show you what Reuters, is it Reuters or Reuters? Whatever. Reuters wrote about these presidential candidates. That article is being smeared all over Twitter. We're all just like, this is an outright lie. But I want to present both sides because I want you to see how he's being presented to the masses from different media outlets. So let's get into this one.
And we are honored to have him on our show tonight. He joins us now. Bobby, thanks so much for coming on. So you are, of course, being dismissed as a vaccine nut, but watching your announcement today, it wasn't about pharma even so much as it was about America's place in the world and what do we do about it. If you wouldn't mind summarizing for our viewers where you think we are and what you think we ought to do.
That point right there, I forgot to mention, and that was true. For all the people saying, oh, he's this crazy, like anti-vax, barely talked about that. Barely.
Well, I gave a long speech, Tucker, and thank you again for having me on.
Of course.
And for that very kind of an introduction. I think that the general theme of my speech was this corrupt merger of state and corporate power, which is turning our country into a corporate kleptocracy, into a system of socialism for the rich, and this kind of a cushy socialism for the rich, and this kind of brutal, merciless capitalism for the poor.
Now, see, that was something that Bernie Sanders said. Remember, Bernie Sanders talked about the socialism for the rich. So there's a couple of issues that Bernie Sanders had that I feel like he does agree with, but I still feel like he takes it a step further. I think that's a big difference. And if you haven't had a chance to do so, please answer that poll because we'll present the poll results at the end of this.
It keeps us in a state of war. It bails out banks at the same time that last month, the United States government told 30 million people it was cutting their their food stamp checks by 90%.
Yeah.
It took 15 million people off of Medicare. The same month, it gave $300 million to the Silicon Valley Bank and tapped up the cost of the Ukraine war to $113 billion.
Three things that he did right there that I think is very important. Number one, he called out the banks. That's a big one with me. Call them out. He called out the banks. He talked about the money that's been sent over to Ukraine. And he talked about what the American people have lost while everybody else is getting all this money. Working class people and poor people, let's talk about what they're losing right now, right? Healthcare, dental care too. I might have to add that one for Sunday's stream. Dental care, as if your teeth don't matter. So that was important.
We're sending $113 billion to the Ukraine. The entire budget of EPA is $12 billion. The budget of CDC is $11 billion. We have 57% of American citizens could not put their hands on $1,000 if they have an emergency. A quarter of our citizens are hungry. So we're cutting welfare and food stamps by 90%. And we're paying, and we're bailing out the bankers. We're paying for a war that, we can't afford.
Bailing out the bankers. Again, that's a big one. Keep talking about the banks. I feel like this was something that Bernie touched on that during his 2016 campaign, but I felt like the 2020 campaign, which I felt like was more commercialized, I feel like he didn't focus on that. And that's really important for people to understand, because even when the banks have a banking crisis, we covered this the other day, right? Even when the banks have a banking crisis, rich people who have money in those banks, they're still okay. They tend to do well. Silicon Valley Bank, what did they do? People who had the deposits, $250,000 over, they're protected. Everybody else, you're screwed. So you have to continue to call out the banks.
And with the way that we do this is by printing money. We've printed 10 centuries of money in the last 14 years. And that caused the inflation, which raises food, which is a tax on the poor. Oh, we've raised food prices for basic foods like chicken, dairy, and milk by 76%.
Now, people who are followers of MMT, modern monetary theory, would disagree with him here about printing the money.
In the last 2 years, and now we're cutting people's food stamps and bailing out banks the same month. It doesn't make any sense. And we need to get rid of this kind of corporate control of our government. It comes from our democracy is devolving into kind of a corporate plutocracy.
So that's another thing. He's acknowledging that the government is controlled by the corporations. That's a big key. I'm gonna have to get him to work on the money thing though, because this thing about the government printing money, the government does print money. MMT would tell you that this would not be an issue, basically.
I would think that what you just said, and I'll just be honest, I agree with most of it. But even if I didn't, I would think, boy, that's a really interesting thing to say. You have a coherent worldview. You've written a lot of books on these topics. You've clearly thought about it. You're not in it for the money. So don't these issues deserve a wide hearing before the public entering a presidential year? It seems to me that they do.
I would think they would, and particularly the issues of war. And, my son went over and fought in the Ukraine, as I said today. I think people, the major doyens, sort of diplomatic, the most respected diplomatic gurus like Henry Kissinger and Jack Matlock and Larry Wilkinson have all said the Ukraine war is a huge problem for our country because from a geopolitical standpoint, it's driving the Russians close to the Chinese, which is the worst thing for us. But we're there for the right reasons because we have tremendous compassion for the Ukrainian people and the illegal invasion, the brutality, and also their valor and their courage. My own son was serving over there. He joined a special forces unit as a machine gunner. He fought in the Kharkiv offensive. Americans care about the underdog. They care about that kind of suffering. But the question is, why are we in the Ukraine? Because Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense, said that we're there to exhaust the Russians.
This piece here is very important for the people who think we're just there to help the people. You need to listen to this part right here.
Defense said that we're there to exhaust the Russians. President Biden has said that we're there to deplatform, to depose Vladimir Putin. And if that's why we're there, and we're killing a lot of Ukrainians as pawns in a proxy war between two great powers.
In other words, regime change. In other words, we're there to implement regime change in Russia. And that is definitely not the narrative that's being delivered by the State Department to the American people at all. Not through mainstream media, not through White House press briefings at all.
Here's one last thing I would say. Nobody talks about this. There's 14,000 Ukrainian civilians who have died, but 300,000 troops. The Russians are killing Ukrainians at a 7-to-1 to 8-to-1 ratio. They cannot sustain this. What we're being told about this war is just not true.
And let's remember what they continue to tell us. They're willing to fight to the last Ukrainian. That means if all of them die, the U.S. government still does not care. They don't care about the people. That's what I'm trying to make people understand. They don't care about the women and the children. If they're willing to fight to the last Ukrainian and all of those people die and their economy is ruined after this war, then you will know that what this war was really about was to implement regime change in Russia. That's what it was really about. Let's not fall into this camp of we're there to help the women and the children. It really bothers me when people say that, because if you were trying to help those women and children, you wouldn't be bombing them.
No, it's not true. And I would hope, despite the fact you criticize their advertisers, other media outlets would have enough respect for our country and for its voters to give what you said a hearing, because I think it's really important. And we're, again, grateful that you came on our show tonight. You're always welcome. Bobby Kennedy Jr., thank you.
So my critique in reference to the media and his candidacy is that if you disagree with him, bring him on for the conversation. That is the right thing to do. What is not the right thing to do is this. Now, shout out to Case Study QB for this clip, because CNN and MSNBC, they're continuing to smear RFK Jr., but they won't bring him on for the conversation. I want you to listen to what they say here. They're going to go as far as to say that even discussing him is dangerous. That's how crazy this is.
Anti-vaccine activist Robert F. Kennedy Jr. launching a bid for the 2024 Democratic presidential election today. He's already facing a big hurdle. He lacks support from prominent members of his own famous Democratic family. During his speech in Boston, he described himself as a truth teller.
My mission over the next 18 months of this campaign and throughout my presidency will be to end the corrupt merger of state and corporate power that is threatening now to impose a new kind of corporate feudalism on our country.
But see, that shows you how bad the Wi-Fi was. I saw your message. JS says that video quality is like it's from 2006 or something. And this is on CNN. So this is what I was trying to tell you guys. That's how bad the Wi-Fi quality was, right? So I see it wasn't just me. Yeah, I know. All right, let's go back.
And though he invoked his father and uncle, Kennedy was forced to acknowledge his estrangement from some members of his family over his incendiary rhetoric. Back with me now, Elsie Granderson and Alyssa Farah-Griffin. Okay, Alyssa, your thoughts?
Let me tell you something about the estrangement from the family. You know, I don't know. Maybe this is like a thing for like older generations. But what I want people to understand is like people like my generation, millennials and Gen Z, and it's actually not that uncommon to not be in touch with all of your family. I just want people to understand that, especially for those of us that are millennials, because we tend to move and hop around so that we can try to make more money so that we can live. That's how real it is out here. But that's actually not that uncommon. Like I know people come around the time for the holidays, they're not really close with their family like that, like they used to be. So when they make these comments and they say, oh, his family is not on board with this and he's estranged from I'm just kind of like, and that's just my take on it. I'm just like, so what?
keep an eye on this. So there's a USA Today Suffolk poll that had him at 14%, which I think is incredibly high. I think you hear the name Kennedy and the average voter, push voter voting in this is not even sure which Kennedy to associate it with. Also something to keep an eye on.
They're not sure which Kennedy to associate it with. Who would we confuse it for? Who would we confuse? This is the part that's funny to me. We're not sure which one is. Okay, let's see who's around. You got Joseph Kennedy III, who lost. He tried to primary challenge Ed Markey. That was a disaster. Now he has no seat. Okay. He was in the House. And then he tried for the Senate seat. That's a whole nother story. Anyway, and then you have RFK Jr., right? In reference to politics. She's like, oh, I don't know. People are trying to figure out which Kennedy this. I don't think people are trying to figure that out. I'm sorry. I can't.
In this, Steve Bannon's been hyping him on his War Room podcast, as well as Roger Stone.
And is that a maneuver? I mean,
I think it is a maneuver,
or he's trying to just disrupt him.
I think it's an effort to disrupt and to try to take votes away from Joe Biden. And of course, right now he's running as a Democrat, but there's nothing to say that he wouldn't try to run as some kind of a third party challenger in a potential, Trump Biden head to head. Not a serious person, but we do know there's an anti-vax sentiment in this country. I'm sure that will help get him some votes. But
notice how she said he's not a serious person. Define serious person. Why is he not a serious person? And Joe Biden is a serious person. Let's think about this. Joe Biden's serious. Joe Biden can't string together a sentence right now. Let's go on. I hate the media smears.
Yes, it's concerning.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with anyone deciding they want to run for president, with the exception of the twice, impeached ex-president. Everyone else, I don't have a problem with. I do think, though, however, what this does do is sort of remind Democrats, if you will, that, President Biden hasn't officially announced yet. And while all things that I've seen in my own personal reporting, plus other reports from other reporters in D.C., is that, for all intents and purposes, he's going to run. But there is this vacuum here. And if you're someone who, not quite sure what to do with your political future and you want to raise up your profile, why not run for president? I mean, did Beto O'Rourke really have a chance of being president? No, of course not. But it kept his issues out there and the things that he was concerned with. It kept those conversations going because he was running for president. So if Mr. Kennedy is really...
Look at how she's looking at him. Hold on. Look at her facial expression. Let's see if I can right there. Look at how she's looking at him. She's like, oh, no, don't you say that.
I mean, did Beto O'Rourke really have a chance of being president? No, of course not. But it kept his issues out there and the things that he was concerned with. It kept those conversations going because he was running for president. So if Mr. Kennedy is really serious as an anti-vaxxer, this allows him a platform running for president to continue to push those views.
I do.
Notice how they're ignoring all the other positions that he's running on. They're just focusing on that position. That's on purpose. But let me say something really quick. I don't think this is going to be the turnoff in the way that they think it will be. Some people may hear that and be like, oh, okay, I can get down with that. Some people who are in the states that were locked down like mine are kind of like, oh, yeah, you know what? He may have a point. A lot of people lost their businesses here because of the lockdowns. And then you may have some of the younger people that's like, he's based. Some people might like that. This is the whole thing. Like with Bernie Sanders, you thought they would have learned this by now. When they tried to turn people off from Bernie Sanders and say, he's a socialist. I mean, he's going to turn the country into Cuba and Venezuela. Younger people were like, based.
Worry that we're going to have candidates on both the right and the left, though, who are running on such extreme platforms. I mean, he represents something that, especially in a post-pandemic era, I think is wildly dangerous, some of the things that he's espoused. And on the right, we've seen some extreme positions being taken. I'm hoping we see both fields consolidate quickly, and I do think it's incumbent on the president to announce.
She's talking really fast, but I want you to hear this part where she says dangerous.
On such extreme platforms. I mean, he represents something that, especially in a post-pandemic era, I think is wildly dangerous. Some of the
wildly dangerous. What's wildly dangerous? Are you in danger, guys? Who says it's wildly dangerous? This is just weird to me. The words they're using, danger, not a serious person, not serious, danger. concerning.
Things that he's espoused. And on the right, we've seen some extreme positions being taken. I'm hoping we see both fields consolidate quickly. And I do think it's incumbent on the president to announce sooner rather than later.
But I mean, are you saying that you think that if
this part right here, 219, sorry, 3 members of his family denounce his jab views. 2021 Instagram takes down his account for repeatedly sharing debunked claims about the jab and the pandemic. Also in 2021, clashes with family members after calling for release of his father's assassin, Sirhan Sirhan. 2022 invokes Nazi Germany in an anti-jab speech in Washington, D.C. These things right here, they're not detailed. And it's important that you understand the context of them. And this is why I say, if they want to know why he made these statements, then invite him on and have the discussion. What's so hard about that? What are they afraid of? Just like they didn't want to talk to Bernie Sanders. If you want to know why he said what he said, invite him on and talk to him about it. But the family stuff, 1 and 2, like this is not a gotcha. This is not a gotcha for like people's like, look, they really think everybody's like close and lovey-dovey with their family members and stuff like that. A lot of younger people are not. That's what I'm trying to tell you. A lot of people, you got the kids live over in Seattle. The parents are in like Georgia. Okay. How often are they seeing their parents? How often are they seeing their grandparents? The idea of the American family, including the relatives that are, it's more like the non-immediate, the non-immediate family members, like the ones that are not your immediate family. This idea of these days where the large family is gatherings still continue and everybody's still together and everybody sees each other multiple times a year, that has not been my experience as I've gotten older, not as a millennial. Hell, you got people living all over the place. Some people on the West Coast, some people on the East Coast. I didn't grow up in one town my whole life, not one state my whole life. I've moved around my entire life. So I don't even know where some of my relatives are. Shit. I'm sorry, but I don't know. I don't think that's a gotcha.
Joe Biden announced that he is running for re-election, Robert Kennedy Jr. wouldn't get in?
No, I'm just saying there's a vacuum right now. There's no movement in terms of 2024 in terms of a Democrat, right? This is like this is the first time you've heard someone running as a Democrat for 2024, right? So this is like, oh, that's right. We do need to gear up for the primaries. We do need to do these things. And while I don't expect President Biden to find himself being primary by established Democrats, it is important to continue to have these conversations that are outside the sphere of liberalism in order to push agendas or policies forward for the real debates, right? Because eventually at some point, someone's going to talk about COVID, someone's going to talk about vaccines, and you got to have answers, and this is good batting practice.
It's really interesting to hear what you say, that name recognition gets you that far already.
You have to imagine, I mean, just when I saw that poll, that's got to be the fact that his last name's Kennedy and that
not necessarily. Not just necessarily because his last name is Kennedy, because that if that were the case, then Joseph Kennedy III would have mopped the floor with Ed Markey. If that were the case, Joseph Kennedy III would have won that race hands down. He lost. Even the younger people supported Ed Markey. He thought his name was going to carry him over the threshold too. That did not work. That name did not work. It is not as, it doesn't hold as much power as it used to. And people have to understand that. I live right here in Massachusetts, and I'm here to tell you, yes, they are really beloved here in Massachusetts, but the name does not hold as much power as it used to. That's why when Joseph Kennedy III lost, it was such a big deal. She just looks so uncomfortable.
Poll, that's got to be the fact that his last name's Kennedy and that people are like, which one is it? I'm not totally sure.
And he's got the same name.
Is it Joe Kennedy, who great moderate former member in the House? I think there's an element of confusion there. He does have kind of.
There's no element of confusion. Joe Kennedy has fireball red hair. He lost. Okay. He ran for Senate and he lost. These guys do not look alike. Eric, if you can find me a picture, if you can pull up a picture, we already got a picture of RFK. Can you pull up a picture of Joseph Kennedy III? Because I want to show people they don't look alike.
a cult-like following, similar to a Marianne Williamson, where there are people who will kind of follow them, you know, regardless of the viability of the campaign. But to get him to that sort of a number seems surprisingly high to me.
Alyssa, LZ, thank you both.
That's because you live in a bubble. He does. He does. Yes, he does. Yeah, that didn't work out too well for him. If you see a picture, let me know when you see the picture, Eric. I'm going to go to this article. Are you doing that? Okay. I want to shout out this. This is really funny. And then I'm going to go to that article, what Reuters was doing. Eric said, remember Uncle Freddie? Nope. No, like this. I'm sorry, but it's just, I don't remember all these people. Like, thanks, Eric. So explain this to me, guys. Let me see where my Taibbi and C is. Okay, here we go. Like, these guys do not look alike. Like, what? This is Joseph Kennedy III. You always remember him because he's the one with the red hair. He don't look like the rest of them like that. He don't. So how you gonna confuse? Where is let me bring up RFK Jr. really quick. Is he still in this picture? Let me go back so you can see. Hold on. Pause there. So that's RFK Kennedy, or excuse me, RFK the Jr., right? Okay. Now let's go back to Joseph Kennedy III. Go back to him. How they look alike? They don't even look alike. He was against cannabis. I know, gamer. I know. And he wonders why he lost. That was a big mistake. I was like, are you kidding me? It's legal here. I'm not looking at the comments anymore. Blue Moon said, what the stop? Okay. Moving on to that article. We're not going to read the whole article. I'm just going to show you something. So Reuters, right? Even they're playing games. 2024 U.S. presidential election, who's in, who's out, and who is still thinking about it. Watch this. So, of course, they show Joe Biden, right? Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, although he is not announced, but they assume he will. Nikki Haley, Tim Scott. Tim Scott has announced that, well, he hasn't announced, but it has been announced that he has an exploratory committee. So that's why he's here. But listen, I'm gonna show you what they do, right? Asa Hutchinson, Mike Pence, I don't think he's running. Chris Christie, who I also don't think is running, says he might be possible. Chris Sununu, Vivek Ramaswamy. That's a pretty cool name. Vivek Ramaswamy. Okay, watch this. You guys notice something? Notice how his name, the font is large and it's bold. All of their names are like that, right? Now watch this. We get to RFK Jr. Why is his font smaller? And notice that his name is not bold. That's intentional. You couldn't copy and paste. Come on. I write too. You just copy and paste and then you change the name. So you see what they did? Look, even when we get to Mike Pompeo, notice again, the font is larger. Whoops. The font is larger and it's bold. When you get to RFK Jr.'s name, the font is smaller right up here and it's not bold. Why is that done? So that you'll skip right over it. Doesn't stand out. I called this out on Twitter by the day. I tagged Reuters and let them know what's up with this. What is up with that? And then here's the other thing. Mike Pompeo is not running. He announced he's not running. They even put here he's not running. So why do you even have him here? You put someone's name in bold that's not even running, but you didn't put the person's name in bold that is running, and you made the font smaller. I don't think that was an accident, especially since it was only his name. Now you got Glenn Youngkin. I tell you guys, I noticed this shit. Look, this is new. That was not there earlier. A bunch of people were calling it out on Twitter. Marianne's name was not in this article. They left it out. In fact, let me see if I can find it. They have her there now. But notice they still have not corrected R.F. Kennedy Jr.'s name. They still won't put it in bold, and the font is still small. If anyone's watching, if you know his campaign team, you might want to let them know about that. Maybe if they get pushback from them, maybe things will change. But let me go to that Twitter. I'm going to take you to the Twitter because I want to show you. Oh, that was me. I should have just went back. Crap. How do I get back? No. Sorry, this isn't my Twitter account, so I want to show you right there. Because see, I noticed, look, something I noticed about Reuters' recent article about presidential candidates. Number one, Marianne isn't even listed. She was not listed there. Two, RFK Jr.'s name is not bold and has a smaller font when compared to other names listed. This is why people don't trust media. And there's my little screenshot there. And then there's Mike Pompeo. You see what I'm saying? Sabby noticed these things. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm nosy. But I noticed it. And you can see the comments. Here's Nico, and Mike Pompeo isn't even running. Like, it's just Pompeo is not running. See, look. Let's go to that. Let's go to that poll, Eric. Jesus. They're so obvious about it. They don't even try to hide it now. And then I'll show you the chapter announcement. All right. So how did you guys vote? This is a hot mess. If you had to vote for Marianne or RFK Jr., who would you vote for? This is if you had to vote. It's 179 votes. Really? That's all of you that voted? You guys don't want to vote. That's crazy. It's a lot of people watching. You guys didn't want to vote? Really? You guys want to say no, neither, right? All right. So for the people who did vote, 1% said Marianne is a Democrat. 6% said Marianne as Indy third party. 19% said RFK Jr. as a Democrat, but 75% say RFK Jr. as Indy third party. Kim Iverson also did a poll. Kim's poll is better than mine. Let me bring up her poll. You guys didn't want to participate with me tonight. Participate, collaborate. Let me go to Kim's because I think hers had more participants. Yes, hers did. All right, let's pull up hers. Let me go down. Let me see. I hope she didn't close. It's still there. That's Medicare for All. Dude, I should have saved the link to this. That's Kim's show. Michael Schellenberger on everybody page. Let me see. Here it is. Okay, so I have to vote to do one of this. I wouldn't. Oh, that's right. Her poll's different from mine. All right, guys, I have to pick one to see the results. Isn't that how this works? Is that how this works, Eric? All right, I'm just going to pick someone. Now, no one try to come after me for this and be like, Sabby on her show said she would vote for so-and-so. No, I did not. This is just a test because I need to see what's what. So if I had to, let's say RFK. So look, you're right. Okay, Kim's poll is the better poll. So 12.1% say Vivek, 7.5% say Marianne, 56.9% say RFK Jr., and 23.5% say Ron DeSantis. How many people voted? 7,383. Hers is a better example, I think. Oh, I'm sorry, Eric. Okay. Go ahead. Eric said it wasn't updated. Oh, okay. I was about to say only 100 people voted. Okay. If you had to vote for Marianne or RFK, who would you vote? 2% say Marianne as a Democrat. 5% say Marianne as Indy third party. 20% say RFK Jr. as a Democrat. And 73% say RFK Jr. as independent or third party. Okay. And that's 609 votes. I think Kim has a better sample. Although hers she didn't put whether they would be third party or Indy or not. That's a good question too. That means these people who voted, they're willing to vote for them as a Democrat. Okay. So that's something to take into consideration, guys. Mary said plus Kim's poll was 20 hours ago. Okay. Oh man. We're going to do call in tonight. I couldn't pick just one topic, just FYI, because we covered so much. So I was just like, any of these stories you want to talk about tonight, we can talk about. Eric, we still have super chats to go through, but I just want to shout this out really quick. The RBN chapters you guys have been asking about, those will be launching in May. I'll give you more info, but I just wanted to let you know about this, how you can join, to email us, etc. So I'm the chapter lead for Boston, obviously, because that's I'm here. Nick, Kansas City, Rome is in Detroit, CJ's in Long Beach, and JB is Orlando. So those will be coming up pretty soon. I'll give you guys more details about that, how you can get involved, what I'm looking for. I will tell you, I am picky. I'm just meaning that, like, if you know that you don't have the time to do it, don't sign up. If you know that you're not responsible, don't sign up. I don't like irresponsibility. I just really don't. Like, I'll let you know, that's my pet peeve. I don't like when people are irresponsible. So if you can't do it, don't feel like you have to. And then the other announcement I want to make is Sunday, I'm going to start at 4 p.m. Eastern time instead of 5, because Chris Hedges is coming on Sunday. And I have Do Dissidents at 7 p.m. on Sunday. So I'll have my show at 4. Chris Hedges will join. And then I'll go on to Do Dissidents show at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So, yeah. I'm going to take a quick break before call in. And when I get back, we'll get started.
All right. Here we go. This is when we give our Sabrina a little break before the call-in starts.
Don't forget to tell them to hit the like button.
Yeah, what she said. All right. Don't forget to hit that like button. I guess we can always use a few more likes. And let's see. Yeah, so there's going to be tonight's call-in on Taibbi, Uhuru, JFK. I think this is the catch-all call-in. It's been a while since we've done one, so it's like so we're gonna do everything. I'm gonna put the call-in link in the chat just so that you have that right away. And I think Sabby will be posting that to the that'll be pinned to the chat in a while. But all right, call-in. You can go to call-in on your browser. You can hit the link. You can do. Sorry, I'm just going to clear this. All right, you can do call in on your cell phone, install the app, search for Sabby Sabs, and show starting soon, and we'll hear what you got to say, because that's the beauty of call-in. We can hear what everybody thinks, not just the hosts, and we want to hear what you got to say. Now, speaking of what you got to say, I got some super chats here to go through. Let's see what we got in. Thanks for this one, Steve Wolfbrand. 10 years for misspelled word. Yeah, what they're going after Taibbi for. Thanks for that. And Dwayne said, yeah, they wanted to make an example of Taibbi to frighten journalists. Yeah, definitely true on that one. And you got that. You got Assange, and it's all about narrative management, propaganda, manufacturing consent. One of the things that Caitlin Johnstone says is that like one form of like power is being able to make people do what you want with force, but she says real power is making people do what you want when they think they're doing what they want. It's like making people want to do what you want them to do, making them think that they have their own choice, and it's what they're thinking of doing, that they thought of themselves, but it's really, the propaganda and the whole narrative. Desert Mantis, yeah, but in protect the Democratic Party at all costs, what they're doing. Pete Sound saying, yeah, government and corporations are all about misinformation. And thanks for the super chat, Mr. Roger Meadows, saying, kill the messenger, story of Gary Webb all over again. Thanks for that, Roger. And thanks for this super chat, Dogs FTW. Worth noting that if the American people took RFK at his word regarding vaccines before and after COVID, many, many more would be dead from disease than any war he opposes. Okay, thanks for that. And thanks for this, Dogs FTW. You have to be somewhat careful about what we say here on the old YouTube. But even if RFK doesn't emphasize his vax position, it doesn't mean they aren't relevant when assessing his candidacy. Thanks for those. Thanks for this super chat, David Parker. Will RFK speak about the FBI attack on Uhuru? That's a good question. The mainstream media isn't going to ask him about it, but we'll see. And from AOHT6, MMT doesn't believe in unlimited money printing either, though. Yeah, we could spend the whole night on MMT as well. There's a lot there. And thanks for the super chat, Janice Anderson. Bernie 2020 focused getting centrist Dems 2020 because he knew he lost a lot of his lefty support. So Bernie 2020 focused on getting centrist Dems in 2020 because he knew he lost a lot of his lefty support. That's why his focus was so different 2016 versus 2020. Yes, thanks for that, Janice. And thanks for this super chat, Julie O. The Sirhan thing is because his father's autopsy didn't support it being Sirhan, and he had fought for Sirhan to be released from prison. Yeah, that guy talking is a vacuum. Thanks for that. And thanks for this super chat. You're faceable. The MSM despises him because he represents views that align with the left. Thanks for that. And I know we got at least one paid comment in the Rock Fans from Roger saying, I think he's referring to the woman on CNN, saying this woman said she thinks the reason he's running is to take votes away from Joe Biden. Apparently she doesn't know what a primary is, or she thinks he's running third party. Very true. Thanks for that, Roger. I think that's all we got on the Rock Fins. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, call in tonight. We got basically all the topics so we're going to Sabby a little break, and then we'll come back with another little segment, and then we'll jump into call-in where you can jump in the queue, tell us what you think, whether it's about Taibbi, Uhuru, RFK Jr., or really anything you feel like talking about. Let's see here. Let me resize that. One of the things that's been talked about recently is around tech, and there was actually a Caitlin Johnstone article that she had recently. Let me see if I can work my windows right and bring that up. And what she said was about tech and about what's important when you're thinking about tech issues. Why isn't that working? And here we go. Let me show that. All right, so this is CaitlinJohnstone.com, which I highly recommend anything and everything that Caitlin writes. But she had a recent article that really resonated with me that was titled, Tech Would Be Fine If We Weren't Ruled by Monsters. And, she was kind of making, I'll just read a bit of it here. You see the point she was making. Militarized robots are the anti-guillotine. They're the final solution to the ancient. They're a lot more of us than there are of our rulers' problems. And and she says so many emerging technologies would be cause for celebration if our rulers weren't so damn evil and our systems weren't so damn oppressive. In a healthy society, we'd be celebrating automation and AI giving us more and more abundance and free time. Instead, we're terrified of police robots and technocratic dystopia. And this was, and I'll end the section here. She says, all of this is only the case because we are ruled by tyrants and oppressed by tyrannical systems. It is, in fact, within our ability to change this. And this is something that's kind of a way that I've thought of this at times as well, and that it's not it's generally a mistake to focus on the tech. I mean, there are some technologies that are inherently problematic, and killer autonomous robots and whatnot that should be regulated and in some cases banned. But in general, it's really down to who controls the technology and who benefits from the technology. And so, like Caitlin's saying there, it could be really cool. I mean, there could be a really good world that this technology plays a role in, but it's not going to be good while the billionaires and this tiny 0.1% control everything. Richard Wolff was on with RJ Eskow in a recent episode that RJ Eskow posted on his channel at 0 Hour, and Richard Wolff was kind of saying a similar thing, that the real problem is about capitalism and squeezing profit out of everything, and about control and about who benefits. And his example was about automation in like a factory. And so if the automation causes you don't need half the workers, do you just fire them and put them on their own, or do you let people work half the number of hours? And of course, what decisions the billionaires and the owners will make, what decisions we would make, and that's the difference. All right.
That's right.
I've done my spiel. All right, we'll see you on the call-ins.
That's right, guys. Let's do it. Let me find call-in. I don't know where it went. But we're going to head on over to call-in. There were so many stories, and I didn't stream last night, so I couldn't pick just one. So let's just chat about it all, okay? This is episode 98, Taibbi, Uhuru, RFK Jr., and more. I forgot to put a space there. So much happened this week that it's difficult to choose one topic. So let's discuss everything that was newsworthy this week. So let's just go ahead and dive in there. So that link is pinned to the top of the chat. So we will head over there. If you're new and you haven't done call-in before, if you don't have the app, you can actually access it from your laptop as well. If you just click on that link, and you can actually call in from your laptop too. So that was a new feature that they added. So let's do that. I have had this song. I don't know if you guys, everyone in the chat, I don't know your age groups, but I've had a Tina Turner song in my head all day today because I heard it once like earlier today, and I was like, oh my God, that song stuck in my head. And I was Tina Turner twice for Halloween. Did you guys know that? I was Rolling on the River Tina Turner, and I was What's Love Got to Do with It Tina Turner. I like both of them, but they're different time periods. They're different things are going on, One song is when she was still with Ike, and she was talking about leaving the job in the city, left to get job in the city. That song. And then the other one, she's pissed off. That's Pissed Off Tina. That's post Ike. So I think if you're going to listen to Tina Turner, you need to listen to both periods of her musical career. Pre or with Ike and post Ike, because her music changes. But we love Tina Turner. I love Tina Turner. All right, let's go ahead and head on over to call in. That link is pinned to the top of the chat. Other than that, guys, you know how we do this. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.